אוקיי, זה פשוט. ערב שבת שלום, פרשת כי תצא. Okay, רבותיי, this parasha, it's dear to my heart because this parasha I read from my bar mitzvah.
Happy birthday.
Amen. So, I am particularly familiar with the Pesukim. Happens to be that, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the most mitzvot in this week's parasha. I wrote it on the newsletter, 74 to be exact. It's a lot of mitzvot in parasha. One of the things that is discussed, which I always found interesting, which the truth is I'm kind of taking a risk going into the subject at all, but that is in the very beginning it talks about that let's say there's a war that the Jewish people, they go and fight. And while they're in the war, they take captives. They take captives, non-Jewish captives. And the Torah tells us that if one of the captives that you see is a woman, then strangely enough, the Torah actually allows you to take this woman as a wife. In Hebrew, we call it the Eshet Yifat Toar, right? This woman that's considered Yifat Toar, she's very beautiful. Do we have a source sheet? Our source sheet tells us in source number 1, V'ra'ita b'shivya Eshet Yifat Toar b'chashakta ba. What does it mean b'chashakta ba? He has a desire for her. B'chashakta ba v'lakachta lecha li'isha, and you shall take her as a wife for you. Again, very strange halakha. Very strange halakha that you could have a man, that's a married man by the way, he's married, he has his wife and his kids at home, and he's on the battlefield, and all of a sudden he sees a woman that he desires, a non-Jewish woman, mind you. This woman is a goya, and all of a sudden he has a desire for her. And through that desire, the Torah says, as a one-time dispensation, you're allowed to take her as a wife. It's a tremendous chidush. Why in the world is this? Since when does these type of things become permissible? So, what is the explanation exactly about that? What would you say? What is the explanation why the Torah allows you to take this woman as a wife, even though you're married, even though you have kids at home, and even though this goya says, when do we allow a man to marry goya? Natan, is that a good question? You have an answer to this question? So Rashi says, which is the logical thing to say. Rashi comes along and Rashi says, I'll tell you why. It says over here, Lo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzahara. So now the Torah is talking to specifically the evil inclination. Why? She'im ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu matira yinaseh b'yisur. And this is the logic over here. Because if Hashem doesn't allow you to do it b'heter, you're going to come to do it b'yisur. Meaning to say the Torah, it understands the logic of human. The Torah understands the weakness of a human being. It understands the psychology of a human being. That if you come along and you say that you cannot have something, if you're going to do it anyway, so Torah says that he's going to do it anyway. Here, he's going to do it anyway. So we might as well allow him to do it beheter rather than do it b'isur. That's what it sounds like. We rather the guy, I don't understand. So that means, let's say, as an example, it's like that means if I'm driving and there's no kosher restaurant, I'm starving, all of a sudden I see McDonald's. Right? As a one-time dispensation, would I be allowed to go inside the McDonald's because I'm really hungry? No, that sounds like ludicrous, right? So same thing here. Because the guy really, really wants her, all of a sudden we gotta come along and tell him, it's okay, you could have her. I got a phone call this past week. I wasn't planning on saying this. I got a phone call this past week from one of my friends that I lived in Kola with. His name is Rabbi Shlomo Katz. And Rabbi Shlomo Katz, maybe he don't want me to mention his name, but anyway, he's not gonna hear this. So he's a rabbi in Ontario, Canada. I usually don't pick up when I see the words called from Ontario, Canada. I thought it was like a prank call or one of those. What is it called? What is it? Potential spam. Yeah, potential spam. I picked up anyway, and he said, "Hi, Rabbi Rubinoff. This is Shlomo Katz. How are you?" I said, "Oh, Shlomo, good to hear from you." So he tells me what happened. He tells me that his brother is a Kiruv activist in Phoenix, Arizona. And in Phoenix, Arizona, he said there was this couple, unfortunately, a Sephardic Bukharian couple, who was not religious at all. They want to get married. But they want to get married, Kitab Kedin, they want to get married with a rabbi that's present. The only problem is that the wedding hall that they're making the wedding in is a non-kosher catering hall. It's not kosher, tarif ligamre. So now, ever since the rabbis in Phoenix, they found out that the wedding is going to be in a non-kosher place, no rabbi in Phoenix wants to marry them off. Not Ashkenaz rabbis and not Sephardic rabbis. Nobody wants to marry them off. And this Kiruv activist, right, this brother of my friend of mine that's calling me, he got involved. Now he calls his brother in Ontario, Canada. He asks him if he could get any Orthodox rabbi that will marry them off. Why? Because they're threatening. What's their threat? If you don't marry us off in a kosher way, we're gonna go to a Reform rabbi. Reform rabbis are gonna marry anybody. So therefore, that is the ultimatum. You either marry us off beheter, right, or we're gonna get married b'isur. Exactly what Rashi is saying, right? Anyway, if we don't let the guy do it, he's gonna do it b'isur. So we might as well give it to him beheter. That is what Rashi is saying. So you got to understand that so far that's Rashi's logic. Rashi's logic is, again, if we don't allow him to do it, he's going to do it anyway. So we rather him do it in a permissible way rather than do it in a forbidden way. That's what Rashi says. But I saw another explanation from Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz. He comes over and he says, which I think is fascinating. He comes over and he says the exact opposite. The truth is, Rabbi, you ever hear of a cloud in Gemara? The general rule in the Gemara that says "Mayim ginuvim imtaku." You know what that means? Mayim ginuvim imtaku. You know what that means? That means that stolen waters are sweeter. What does that mean? That means when something becomes isur for you, when something is forbidden to you, you're gonna want that more than anything else. Is that? Can I give you an example? Can I give you an example of what that means? That means that, let's say, as an example, you have what's called kemach hashan. What kemach hashan is old wheat. We call it winter wheat. And Sephardim, you should try as hard as you can to eat only kemach hashan. Now, coming up in the season, probably about next week, that's when kemach hashan is going to start. Because from now until from Pesach until now, there was no issues of kemach hashan, because truth is everything was kemach hashan. But now, as they begin to use the new wheat that they planted after Passover, now it's called kemach hadash. And hadash, it could be a problem. So therefore, sometimes when it's already hadash season, when it's already in the dead winter, and I'm looking at all the bakery goods, I pass by Walmart, or I pass by what's it called, Costco, and I look at all the baked goods. All of a sudden, when it's hadash, when it's specifically forbidden to me, that's when I want it the most. Why? Because I see it and I say to myself, wow, this looks so good. I wish I could have it right now. But I only want it. Why? Because right now, I can't have it. But fast forward 6 months later after Passover, and I'll be in Costco, and I'll be passing over the bakery section, when I have no issues buying the croissants, I have no issue buying the donuts, or the cupcakes, or the danishers, or the muffins. I have no issue. Why? Because everything is considered yashan. I won't buy it. Because why? Because right now, I'm not in the mood of it. I don't want it. So that means that only, says Rabbi Eibishitz, that a person only wants something when that item is forbidden to him. But once that item becomes permissible, he doesn't want it anymore. Can I give you a more practical example? You know, sometimes on fast days, when a person wakes up on a fast day, from the moment he wakes up, 8 o'clock in the morning, he's starving. He's starving the moment he wakes up, and the whole day he's complaining about how hungry he is, what kind of headache he has. But on a regular day, when it's not a fast day, the guy won't mind going to work, and he'll forget to eat breakfast, he'll forget to eat lunch, he'll forget to have snack, and he'll only remember once he gets home, well, you know what, I didn't eat today. Why is it like that? Why is it that on a fast day, you're starving the moment you wake up, but on a work day, you're not going to remember to eat until you get home later that night? What's the shot?
You're thinking about it.
The answer is, says Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz, is because since on a fast day, eating is asur, because it's asur, that's when you want it the most. But when eating is mutar, like any other day, you don't really care. Going back to the Yashan example. When it's kemach hadash, I want it. When I pass by that Costco bakery, I cannot wait until after Passover when I can bite into that fresh croissant. But the moment it becomes permissible, I don't want it anymore. Okay, I remember it was like 2 years ago. I was in Whole Foods, and in Whole Foods they had, I saw this. It was like the holiday times, like Christmas time, and they had, as a Christmas special, they had Oreo cookies that was dipped in fudge, and it was sprinkled on top peppermint candy cane. It sounds delicious, and it was so delicious that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy it now. I can't have it because it's hadash. I'm gonna buy it now, and I'm gonna wait till after Pesach to eat it. I kept these dipped chocolate Oreos with crushed peppermint candy cane in my cabinet for 6 months over time. 6 months, and I could not wait till Motzei Pesach. Motzei Pesach, my wife and I were putting away all the Pesach dishes. We're taking off all the tinfoil from the tables, and as I'm putting away the Pesach dishes, I see my Oreo crushed peppermint cookies. I take it out of the thing. I'm like, Batil, I'm so excited right now. I took it out of the box. I'm like, this is finally becoming Yashan. I take it, I open it, I make a mizanot, I ate it. It was the most non-climactic thing I've ever tasted in my life. I took one bite of it, I threw the rest out in the garbage. Why? Because again, when it's mutar, you don't want it. When it's sur, that's when you want it. Says Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz, that is peshat ishit. The truth is, you're right. We don't want this man to take a woman that's not his wife. We don't want this man to all of a sudden, just because he's in war, this becomes permissible to him. Peshat is, says Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz, no. The Torah specifically tells you that this woman is permissible. Why? Because if we were to tell him that's forbidden, he's going to want her even more. Therefore, the Torah says, as a one-time dispensation, you can have her. And once we tell the guy you can have her, what's going to happen? He's not going to want her anymore. That's exactly what Riyot and Abshit says. It's a tremendous kiddush. Exactly what he's saying here. It's exact opposite of Rashi. Rashi's telling me that we allow him to have it because, listen, this guy is a poor guy. It's the middle of war. You ever see those old war movies when you have the guys in the foxhole and they take out a picture of the wife and kids and they're looking at it as the bombs are falling over? Look at, imagine that guy. He's falling. The bombs are falling. He's looking at his wife and kids. Oh, he's kissing them. I wish I could come home to you. And all of a sudden he sees a guy that's alone in war. What does he desire? He desires companionship. He just wants somebody that he can talk to. All his friends are a bunch of jerks, right? So he wants a woman that he can talk to. So the moment he meets her, says Rashi, if you don't allow it to have him, he's going to do be'isur. Says Reuven Abishur the exact opposite. No, the reason why we're matir her is because the moment we say it's okay, he's not going to want her anymore. Fascinating, you know? Is that clear? That's the first two pshat. Third pshat. Look inside your sheets. This comes from the Rabbi called Rahman Kadosh. She says it's fascinating. He comes over and he says, Achen, here we go. Yesod Davar, the death, the Kabbalah about this, the secret. Hu apid devrehem, Zal, Zohar HaKadosh Parshat Balak. What does he say? Sha'amru, Shebechet Adam HaRishon, Nishbu kam neshamot ikarot biyas sitra haram, behem neshamot hagerin. Because what happened? Because we know that after Adam HaRishon he ate from the tree. I don't know exactly how this works, but he says that after he ate from the tree, a lot of holy souls that were inside of him, they were captured what's called sitra haram. What's sitra haram, Nathan? What is that?
That's pure.
That's like the evil side, the dark side. I'm assuming, since the rabbis tell us that Adam Rishon, and we mentioned this many times, he encompassed all the souls, all the neshamot of all people, it was found in his body. And the moment he ate from the Eitz Hadat, there was some sort of explosion. Maybe that's what the scientists they get. That they remember that they said that what's called the Big Bang, there was an explosion, all of a sudden the world came to be. Maybe that's what we're talking about. That the moment Adam Rishon ate from the tree, there was some sort of explosion in his body. And a lot of the neshamot, they released from his body. And the Sitra Haram, the evil side, they captured those souls. And where did those souls go, Rabotai? Where did these captured souls, where did they end up? They ended up in the dark side by the non-Jews. Take this as fact. And in the non-Jewish nations, these holy souls, no, Ronnie has it. These holy souls, they were captured by the non-Jews. So therefore, says Rahman Kadosh, that it was the job of many tzaddikim throughout the generations to marry goyot, and they married goyot just to get the holy neshama out of their hold. So therefore, I review. Says Rahman Kadosh, the moment Adam Rishon ate from the tree, there was an explosion. The shamot came out of him. They grabbed the neshamot. They ended up in the goyim, and that's why you have it in many stories that are not explainable on its own. But all of a sudden, you see these tzaddikim. They're taking goyot as wives, and you're asking yourself, what's going on? Since when is it mutar to take a goy as a wife? The answer is because in the depth of it, they were trying to release these holy souls from captivity. Can I give you a classic example of what I mean? Remember Shimshon HaGibor?
Yeah.
It says that he married a Goya from the Philistine. Her name was Delilah. And everyone's asking, what in the world did Shimshon HaGibor, the prophet, the judge of the nation, Tzaddik Sheba'olam, marrying a Goya for? What's the depth? The answer is because inside this Delilah, he saw a holy soul. Whatever the holy soul was, we discussed this in the past. And the moment he saw her, he said, the only way I could free that soul from captivity is by what? By marrying her. By marrying her, I'm able to pull that soul out of captivity. Says the Rahman Kadosh, he gives us other examples. He says, Tze'ul Mad, come and listen, come and learn. How many great souls came from the other nations? Ruth HaMo'aviyah Tuchiach. The most famous example was Ruth HaMo'aviyah. Ruth, who was again the daughter of the king of Ammon and Moab, and she was the grandmother of David HaMelech. So yes, at the same time, the reason why she came to the nation was because she had a holy soul. That holy soul was King David and the Davidic dynasty. So therefore, she married a Jew in order to get that out. There's so many examples where you had very righteous gerim, converts to the nation, and they would have been completely lost if they had not been extracted by tzaddikim and converted to our nation. Is that a good example? So there says Rahman Kadosh, you're right, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that, by the way, I told you many times before, who were the people in the army back in the day? What kind of people there were? Tzaddikim. It wasn't like the IDF today where you have the religious unit, you have the non-religious unit, Shama Shabbat, Chacham Shabbat. All the people in the army back in the day were tzaddikim. They all had long beard, they all paled behind their ears. So therefore, how is it possible that a tzaddik goes to war and he sees what are you talking about? This guy is a tzaddik. So what's he looking at the ladies for? The answer is because that's exactly the reason. Since they were tzaddikim, since they were so holy, when they looked at these non-Jewish ladies, they saw with their with the tremendous vision that these ladies had holy souls that were trapped inside of their bodies. The only way to release those souls is by to marry them and release the souls from captivity. Can I give you another example that I saw today? Another example is by King Solomon.
When you say married, have to be physically with them?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
And the children are Jews?
And the children are... No, but well, the Torah says he has to convert this woman. That's what it says. It says yes, converted before. And obviously the children become Jewish. But yes, absolutely. So another example I saw before, which is a fascinating example. The example I saw today was by Shlomo HaMelech. Nachon, he had a lot of wives. But he also had another wife, and her name was Na'amah. Na'amah, if I'm getting it correctly, she also was the daughter of the king of Ammon. Am I getting it correct? She was the king, Melech Ammon. She was the daughter of the king of Ammon. And she also married King Solomon. And again, the rabbis are asking, what in the world is Shlomo HaMelech doing marrying this Goyah? It's a fascinating story. Truth is, I brought the Gemara in Gittin. You know what? Can we read it inside? It's a long read, but I promise you, it's worth it. The Gemara tells a fascinating story. How when Shlomo HaMelech was building the Beit HaMikdash, Shlomo HaMelech was building Beit HaMikdash. Take some poppers. When Shlomo HaMelech was building the Beit HaMikdash, the rabbis told him that there's a halacha. Halacha is that when you're using in the construction of the Mikdash, you cannot use metal utensils. You know this halacha, Rabbi? When they were building the stones of Beit HaMikdash, you couldn't use metal utensils for whatever reason. That was halakha. So how did they cut the stones? Yeah, how did they cut it? Anybody know how they cut the stones? Oh, very good. What was the one called? Anybody know? Gemara calls it a shamir worm. That's what it was called. And this shamir worm apparently is very rare, and you need to look for it. So the Gemara says that King Solomon came to the rabbis and he said, "How in the world am I going to cut the stones if I don't have any metal utensils?" So they told him, "You have to find the shamir." So they said, "How am I going to find the shamir? I don't know where the shamir worm is." So they told him, "The demons know where it is." You know the story? Let's see the story inside. It's a fascinating read. Says look at the third source on the page. The Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, take a source. I want you to see it inside. It says the Gemara as follows. It says like this: Amalu Rabbanan. He told the rabbis, "Hey, Evid, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to find the shamir worm?" Amri le'eh. So they told him, "Ika shamira da'ite Moshe l'avnei ephod." He goes, "Go find the shamir that Moshe Rabbeinu used to cut out the stones of the ephod." The ephod was the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. In order to make the etches in the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, he also used the shamir worm in order to make the indents. So he told him back, "How in the world am I supposed to find it?" So they told him back, "Aiti sheida v'shidetin v'kavshinu adadeh." He told him, "Go find two shadim, a female shade, which is the demon. Find a female demon and a male demon, and torture them, and they're going to reveal the secret. Maybe they're going to know what they're going to tell you." So he brought the male and female demon. So he tortured both of them. Anan lo yad'inan. So the shadim, these demons, they told King Solomon, "We don't know where the shamir worm is." However, Dilma Ashmedai Malka Dishhedei Yada. Maybe the head demon, the king of demons, his name is Ashmedai. Maybe Ashmedai knows, and ask him. So he said, "Amalahu heicha ite." So he asked these demons, "Where is your king? Where is Ashmedai? What's his address? What's his coordinates?" Amrele, he lives in the following place. Ite betura Pelan. He lives in a mountain called Palan. Kariyat le Bera. And he has, in that mountain, he has a well. Bera is a well. Every single day he drinks from this well. Umaliyah le maya. He fills it up with water. Umikasya betinara. And he closes it with a boulder. Behatma begush panka, or begush panke. And every single day when he closes it, he also seals it with a certain sealant. Every single day he goes up to Shamayim and he learns with the yeshiva in heaven, and he comes back down to this world, and he learns with the yeshiva of this world. Then he comes and he inspects his seal to make sure it wasn't tampered with. He opens the rock and he drinks. That's what he does every single day. Every single day, Ashmedai, he fills up this board, this hole with water, and he puts a boulder inside, and then he seals it. Then he goes up to Shamayim, he learns Torah over there, and he comes back down here, he learns Torah over here. Then when he gets thirsty, he goes to his mountain, he inspects the seal, make sure it wasn't tampered with. He takes out the rock, drinks the water, refills it again, and covers it again. This is what he does day in and day out. Is that clear what he does so far? It's amazing. Ashmedai, the king of demons, he's learning Torah more than we are. He comes along and he says that you have to make a plan. You have to make a plan in order to somehow trick Ashmedai to tell you, where is this shamir worm? So Shlomo HaMelech had an idea. He's going to go to his most trusty servant. His name is Benaiah. ben Yehoyada. He was the, I think he was the general of his army, if I'm not mistaken. But bottom line is, he was part of his royal entourage. So he says over here, he says, Shadrei leBenayahu ben Yehoyada. So he sends this Benayahu as his agent. Yahav lei shushilta de hakik ala Shem. So he gave him two things. The first thing he gave him was the chain, a chain that the name of God was written on it. The izdika de hakik la Hashem. He also gave him a ring that Hashem's name is also written on it. So Benayahu would put this ring on so the demon wouldn't be able to harm him. He took this chain also with the name of God in it, so he'd be able to tie up the king of demons and he wouldn't be able to break it. He also gave him wool. He also gave him jugs of wine. Azal. So Benayahu went. So he found the mountain. He found the bore. He found the well where the water was, and he digs a hole under the well. By digging a hole under the well, then he pokes holes above the ceiling, and whatever water was inside the hole of Ashmedai, all the water, it drained. And what he did, then he took the wool that King Solomon gave him, and he plugged the hole that he used to drain all the water out. Step one. Then he covered the hole. Step two. Then he went above the board. He dug another hole inside to get inside the mountain. Then he drew a hole on the bottom, this time in the ground, and he filled that hole with what? With wine. He filled the entire thing with wine.
Without tampering
with the seal, exactly. Because if he tampers the seal, Ashmedai is going to come. He's going to see that someone tampered with it. He's going to leave.
Right.
Therefore, without having to break his seal, he drew two holes, one on the top, one on the bottom to drain all the water, and one on top in order to fill it with wine. Says the Gemara as follows: V'shavinu l'mayat. He drained all the water. V'sadminu b'gavevei da'amran. Then he sealed it with the wool. V'kara bereid me'aliyah. And then he made another hole on top of the hole. V'shavchinu l'amran. Then he poured wine inside. V'tamninu. And then he sealed it. Then he went and he sat on the tree, waiting to see what's going to happen. Says the Gemara, when Ashmedai came down from heaven and he saw that his seal was not tampered with, also he opened it, but he doesn't see water. What does he see?
Wine.
He sees wine. And he's thinking to himself, how in the world did wine get in here? It can't be that it was tampered with because my seal is still there. So he begins quoting Pesukim, how dangerous wine is for you. Says the Gemara, Amrei, this is Ashmedai talking, Ketiv, Leitz hayayin omeh shehar. And when a person drinks wine, he becomes like a litz. He becomes like a clown. Anybody that drinks wine, lo yihekam. He doesn't become smart. Two things take away a person's heart. Znut, which is adultery, and wine, they take a person's heart away. Therefore, lo ishti. I'm not going to drink the wine. Chaval, why am I going to get involved with wine for? However, kitzahe, he became very thirsty. Lo sagile, he couldn't hold himself anymore. Ishti, he drank. Rabba udgena, and he fell asleep. Oh, now while he's sleeping, the Benayahu says, "This is my chance." He goes over to Ashmedai. He takes the chains and he throws it on him and he locks it. What happens? Nahit ata shadei beishu shlita satmei, and he closed it. Ki itar, when Ashmedai wakes up, habaka mifarzal. He started going crazy. He wanted to break off the chains. All of a sudden, Benayahu screams out, "Amalei shmad de marach alach, shmad de marach alach." The name of your master is on the chain. The name of your master is on the chain. Meaning to say, since God's name is on the chain, if you break it, what are you doing? You're breaking God's name, and therefore you cannot break God's name. So the moment he told him that, he stopped trying to break the chain. So what happens? He takes Ashmedai all the way from whatever he was, all the way to Yerushalayim. He takes him to King Solomon, and after 3 days of waiting in the jail, after the third day, King Solomon comes to see Ashmedai. After 3 days, he came to him. What happens? Shakal kanya. So Ashmedai takes a kanya. Kanya is like a piece of reed, like a piece of grass. Umashchara ba'ad garmiden. He throws it 4 amot onto King Solomon. Ushte kameh. Amalei michti. Ki mayetahu legavra. When a person dies, talking to King Solomon now. When a person dies, how big is his grave? It's 4 amot. That's the biggest grave you have. Because at the end of the day, late behaden al ma'el arba garmidei. When a person dies, all you have left in this world is the 4 amot in which your body is buried. Hashta kafshetet l'kuli alma. He's talking to King Solomon. Now that you have conquered the entire world, he tells him, La sab'at ad kafshat nameli didi. After you conquered the entire world, you weren't satisfied until you conquered me. That's what Ashmedai is telling King Solomon. Meaning to say that, listen, at the end of the day, when you die, all you're going to have is 4 amot. All you're going to have is a small portion of the world. You conquered the entire world. You weren't happy until you conquered me. That's basically what he was telling him. Says King Solomon to Ashmedai, He tells him back, Amalei, la ka be'enei minach midei. King Solomon tells the king of demons, I don't need you at all. Be'enei de'avnei le'beit hamikdash. I need to build the temple. I need to build the Jerusalem stone. Be'kam be'enei l'mishmirah. And I need the shamir worm in order to build it. Amalei lididi la mistirli. I have no idea where the shamir worm is. However, he says, L'sarad de yama mistirle. What's sarad de maya? Sar shel yam. What is that? Sar shel yam. The officer of the water, meaning the angel, every single bot and every single creation of God has an angel that's in charge. So he told him that if you want to know where the shamir worm is, you have to go to the angel of the sea, and he knows exactly where it is. And he only gives it over to the white chicken. And this white chicken, this white chicken swears to the angel of the water that he'll never tell anybody where the shamir worm is. Rabbi, you can't make this story up. I have no idea where this is going. Why does he give to the chicken? Why does only the Sar Shayam know it? I have no idea. But right now, that's what the story goes. That the Sar Shayam knows where he is. He gives it over to the chicken, and the chicken swears he's not going to reveal the secret. So he asks him, what in the world does the chicken do with the shamir worm? He tells him back, he takes it over to the mountainous areas that have no inhabitants, to those far off mountain areas where there's nobody living in there because it's impossible to live because it has such dire conditions. He puts the shamir worm on top of the mountain, and this shamir worm is so powerful that it breaks the mountain in half. And he plants seeds, like tree seeds, in between the two mountains where he just broke. And all of a sudden trees begin to grow, flowers begin to grow, vegetation begins to grow, and now that place can be officially inhabited by people. So therefore, I guess the Tanagol's job is over here to create living space for people. So he takes this shamir worm, he puts it on ground that's unbreakable, he breaks the ground in half, plants trees, and Shalom Yisrael, you have a yeshuv. That's what the Tanagol does. Says the Gemara, but who? So they found out that this Tanagol, they found the chicken, Benayahu found the chicken, he found out that this chicken also has children. So all of a sudden when the chicken was out temporarily, came Benayahu and he took a glass box, like a glass box that's see-through, and he covered the children of this Tanagol. All of a sudden the Tanagol comes back from work one day and he sees his kids, but he can't get to them. Why? Because there's this box that's preventing him to go through. So he knows that what do I do when I can't get through to something? What do? I get the shamir worm. So also he gets the shamir worm. He puts it on top of the box in order to crack it. Comes Benayahu out of nowhere, scares away the Tanagol, and takes the shamir worm. The Gemara says over here, they take a glass box, chiver, a see-through box. Came the Tanagol, try to get to his children, he could not. Azal aiti the shamira, so he went to get the shamir worm. He put it on top. Ramei bekala, they made a sound. He scared them away. Shadye, he ran away. Shakli, they took the worm. Azal hanek nafshe ashibute. And once the Tanagol found out that the shamir worm was taken away because he violated his swear to the Sar Shel Yam, he choked himself to death. End of story. Bottom line is that now the Beit HaMikdash was able to get built. And the Gemara said that Shlomo HaMelech kept Ashmedai in prison the entire time as the Beit HaMikdash was getting built. Says the Gemara as the conclusion for the story. A lot of things happened in the interim. I'm skipping. Amalei. So now Ashmedai tells King Solomon, Shekol Shushilta Minai. He tells him, you want to see how tough I am? Now they're having an argument who's tougher, Shlomo or Ashmedai. So Ashmedai tells King Solomon, you want to see how tough I am? He goes, right now that I'm tied up with chains, that God's name is on it, right now I'm tied up, so I cannot hurt you. And you feel like a big man. But I guarantee you, he says, once you take off my chains, he says, I'm going to beat you. So King Solomon took that as a threat. The Gemara says, V'hali isketach, I'm going to be stronger than you. V'achvi le'rubutai, and again, I'm going to beat you. So what happens to King Solomon? He agrees. He fell for it. Shaklei lishushata minei. He took off the chain of Ashmedai. He gave him the ring that he was wearing. The moment that happens, bal'eh. What does bal'eh mean? Ashmedai, he swallows that ring that was protecting King Solomon. He became so powerful, he grew so large that one of his wings reached the sky, the other wing reached all the way to the ground. Meaning to say, he was massive. And what happens? He took King Solomon and he threw him 400 pasot, which is very fun. Basically, he threw him halfway. He threw him halfway across. He threw him all the way to China. That's what the Gemara says. Kol heicha demata, and every single place King Solomon would go, Amar, he would say, Ani Kohelet. He goes, I am Kohelet. Hayiti melech HaYisrael Yerushalayim. I used to be the king of Yerushalayim. Kimata gavei Sanhedrin. When he came in front of the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, Amru Rabbanan Michti. So the rabbi said, Michti. Let's analyze. Shoteh behada milta lastarich. My height. A shoteh, a person that's crazy, it doesn't keep repeating the same thing over and over again. When you have a guy that's nuts, what does he do? He says random things, and none of them make sense. But this guy, he's claiming to be King Solomon. All he's doing is repeating all day, Ani Kohelet, Ani Kohelet ben David, Ani Kohelet ben David, I am the king of Jerusalem. They said, listen, a crazy man doesn't repeat the same thing over and over again. It must be that maybe what he's saying, it has some truth to it. Now, in the meanwhile, why didn't they believe him? Because the Gemara says that Ashmedai, he was a shapeshifter. What's a shapeshifter? He's able to take the form of King Solomon. So right when he got rid of King Solomon, he also became King Solomon. And he was running the kingdom of Jerusalem in the interim while Shlomo Melech was not there.
How many years?
I have no idea. That's a good question. That's an excellent question. I can't imagine that it was too many years. But over here he says, he's claiming to the Sanhedrin on King Shlomo. They said that's impossible because King Shlomo has been inside the palace the entire time. But also we have to analyze because a crazy guy doesn't repeat the same thing over and over again. So what happened? So the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, they came over to Benayahu. Amru Benayahu, Ka'aved Ba'al Makal Gabe. Did the king visit you recently? Amru La. He hasn't visited me. Now right away that was the first red flag because we know that Benayahu was the most trusted servant of King Solomon. So therefore, wherever Shlomo HaMelech went, so Benayahu went. So that didn't make any sense that he hasn't seen his best friend in a very long time. Not only that, says the Gemara, so they sent to the queens, all the wives of King Solomon, they asked them, they said as follows, has the king visited you recently? They told him back, he has. Meaning to say that he's been with us recently. We've had marital relationships recently. So they told him a secret. We know that even though demons, they could shapeshift to the body of a person, but they cannot change the feet. The feet of demons always are, anybody know? Chicken feet. Hazak Baruch. So the rabbis told the wives, next time he's with you, check out his feet. If they're chicken feet, we know there's something wrong over here. But if it's regular feet, then we know that then he must be the king. So what happened? They sent him back. No, he comes with us wearing socks. So then we have no idea whether or not he's a demon or not. Now it says the Gemara as follows: not only that, but also when he sleeps with us, he does the dafka when we're in nidah. So now already something is wrong. If he's calling the queens while they're in nidah, that's a big problem. Not only that, but he's also soliciting his mother, Bathsheba, as one of the ladies that comes to him at night. So what happens? They assume that automatically that this cannot be King Solomon because we know King Solomon is a righteous man. Atihu li Shlomo. They find Shlomo. V'havuli is katan. They give him back his ring. V'shlushota dehakik alei shem. They gave him back the chain that had God's name written on it. Ki ayel. When he came up to the palace to fight Ashmedai, Chazieh, the king of demons, saw him. Parach, and he ran away. That's the end of the story. The Gemara concludes that that's why we say, it's also one of the Pesukim quoted in Shir HaShirim, we happen to also say, we say, Hine mitato sheli Shlomo, shishim geburim sabiv lach megubrei Yisrael, kulam ahozei herev melobdei mehalma, ish harabo areho mipach balelot. What does that mean? That means from that episode and on, Shlomo Melech was always afraid to sleep alone at night. He was always afraid of the king coming back, the king of demons coming back. And therefore, before he went to sleep, he had shishim geburim sabiv lach. He had 60 of Israel's finest soldiers surrounding his bed. Herev munach al milchama. They had their hands on their swords, protecting the king the entire night. End of story. Now you know that kavanah in the Shir HaShirim, we'll read it tomorrow night. That's the kavanah. That's what the Gemara says. Now, what I didn't tell you is that there's another version of this kavanah. It's not on the page. It's a midrash. The midrash actually says that in the interim, when King Solomon was thrown halfway across the world when he was in China, he ended up finding a job in Ammon. In the kingdom of Ammon, he found a job. What was his job? He became a chef. Believe it or not, he became a chef. And he was cooking the most delicious meals for the king of Ammon. And the king of Ammon had a daughter, and her name was Naamah. And Naamah fell in love with King Solomon. That's what happened. And he ended up marrying Naamah. Why? Why did he marry Goya? Like I'm telling you right now, because he saw a precious neshama that was inside of her. And when the king of Ammon found out that his daughter married a
Jew?
Not a Jew. that would have been better. Commoner. He was a chef. My daughter only marries kings and princes. So also when he found out that she married a commoner, he had them exiled. When he had them exiled, he eventually made it back. What happened? The ring that I'm talking about, again, another version of the story. When Ashmedai took it, he threw it also halfway across the world. It ended up in the river, in the sea. And a fish came along, and there's fish and swallowed it. So one day, after he was exiled, him, King Solomon, and his new wife, this princess of Ammon, they were fishing inside the river. And as they were fishing, they caught a fish. And that fish happened to be the same exact fish that swallowed his signet ring. You know, when they opened it up, they saw his ring inside the belly. That's how he was able to return to Yerushalayim. That's the whole story. Now again, going back to my point. Eshet Tifator, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this is because we mentioned the fact. Why in the world would the tzaddikim of the army see a woman, a goya, a non-Jewish woman, and want to marry them? The answer of Rabbi HaMakadosh is why? Because they see holy neshamot that's trapped inside them. The only way to release it in captivity is to marry them, be with them, and that's how you extract the neshamot. So that is another way of explaining the whole pshat of Eshet Tifator. So far as that clear, Rabbi? Yeah, we gave three answers. Number one, the answer of Rashi was because if the Torah doesn't make it mutar, then they're going to do it bi-isur. That's number one. Number two, the second reason of Yonatan Abishitz is because of what? Is the opposite. Because the reason why we tell him it's okay is because the moment he finds out it's okay, he's not going to want it anymore. Human psychology. But the moment you tell me it's asur, that's when it's going to be a problem. Finally, you have the answer of the Rabbi HaKadosh, and he says that no, the reason why he had this was because the neshamot were trapped inside. Because it was trapped, you have to release it. Let me give you one more answer, and then we're going to be done for the day. As follows. Rabbi, look at the second to last source on the sheet. The rabbis ask us a question as follows. The rabbis say like this. The very next topic in Parashah, which is the topic right after Eshet Tifator, it talks about a guy called the Ben Surei Moreh. What is the Ben Surei Moreh? What is that? Huh? Yeah, it's talking about, in English, it's called the wayward child. A wayward child is a rebellious child, a child that's around 13 years old, and he begins to rebel against his parents. The pertinent pisukim are as follows. If a man has a wayward child, he doesn't listen to the voice of his mother and his father. The halacha is that the parents, they have to grab him. They have to take him over to the Beit Din, to the gates of the city. So they tell the elders of the city, they tell the Beit Din, our son, he is going off the path. And he doesn't listen to our voice. He begins to eat uncontrollably. And his penalty is they kill him. They give him skila v'met, and he dies. And all of a sudden, the bad amongst you has been burnt. And the entire nation will hear and they will listen. What's the story of this Ben Surei Moreh? The rabbis are telling us that sometimes you have this wayward child. This child that's not considered on the derech. And what he does basically is that he has a unsatisfying craving for very dark red meat and rich wine. That's his craving. All of a sudden he becomes obsessed with eating the best type of meat and the most expensive wine. What the Torah is telling us right here, that this child is nidon Hashem sofo. What does that mean? That we judge him based on what he's going to be at the end of his life. Because if you think about it, what did this child do? All he's doing is eating red meat and drinking red wine. Why is his penalty a death penalty? Is that a fair question to ask that time? Yeah, if all the kid did was just eat meat and drink wine, what do we do with him? We take him to the Beit Din in the city, and the Beit Din kills him. What's Peshat? The Peshat is because, again, he's Nidon Hashem Sofo. We judge him based on not what he is now, what he's going to be in the future. We assume that since this child is so obsessed with eating expensive meat and expensive wine, his ta'ava, his lust for these things are only going to grow. It's only going to get worse. And therefore we assume that later on in his life, when he cannot satisfy, when he cannot afford to have expensive meat and drink expensive wine, he's going to steal for it. And if he can't steal for it, what he's going to do instead, he's going to kill for it. And since he's going to kill for it, since the end game of this kid is that he might come to murder to satisfy his craving, therefore since we assume he's going to murder, we rather kill him now when he's innocent, rather than kill him later on when he is guilty. If we kill him right now, at least he has olam haba. But to kill him later on already, he might be guilty, therefore he's going to go to Gehenna. Therefore the rabbis, they use the power invested in them to kill him now instead of killing him later. Is that a clear background of what Ben Surei Moreh is? My question is that what is the connection? You know, we say all the time that the smichut in the parashiyot, when you have one pasuk next to the other, you can ask why these two things next to each other. Therefore the question is, what is the parasha of Ben Surei Moreh doing next to the parasha of Eshet Tifator? What is taking this Goya in war have to do with his son going off the path? What's the answer, Nathan?
you could have sons from Rora.
Hazaku Baruch. That's exactly what she says.
One thing I don't understand, Rabbi.
Yeah. Why?
Those big rabbi
Yeah.
getting married to Goyot,
It's Goyot, yeah.
just to take the neshama out.
Yeah.
But is it worth it?
Is it worth it to have this child as a Ben Sora Emoreh?
Yes.
It's a good question. Now let me read you Rashi's words inside. Says Rashi, he says, Aval im nas'a sofo liyot sonah. Rashi says that at the end of the day, if he ends up marrying this woman, he's going to hate her. He's going to hate her. Absolutely. They might get divorced. By the way, how did this decide? How does she know that he's going to come to hate her? What hinted to Rashi that if he marries this Eshet Yifat Toar, he's going to come to hate her? I saw a fantastic hidush. You know, when we write ketubah, there's laws how to write ketubah. You have to be very, very specific when you write a ketubah. Before a couple gets married, you have to write the ketubah. It takes me at least half an hour to write one. I write it very slowly. You have to make sure everything is spelled correctly, and also you have to have exactly the date and the place where they're getting married. So sometimes when you're writing a ketubah, let's say as an example, they're getting married on Thursday night. So you have to write, tonight on a Thursday night, Yom Hamishi. You have to write the word Yom Hamishi. No, it's going to be already Thursday night. So Yom Shishi. It's going to be Lil Shishi on this and this date. On what's today? Today is the 12th, right? So you have to say 12 lechodesh Elul. The chodesh Elul. You have to write to the month of Elul. That you're getting married here. Po anu manim. It's usually Queens, right? In Elashi also Queens, New York, right? You have to write that down. Also, Queens is spelled Yaakov Vav Yud Samech. It's a whole. You have to spell it exactly. So in a ketubah, you write the word lechodesh. You always have to write the word lechodesh. What does lechodesh mean? To the month, right? The month of Elul. However, when it comes to a get, you also have to spell it very carefully. But instead of writing the word chodesh, you don't write it chodesh. You write it yerech. What's the difference between chodesh and yerech? Chodesh is a month, and yerech is moon. It's the same thing, but you're just using a more poetic language. Chodesh for the ketubah, and yerech for the gerushin, for the get. They find the remez in this later on in parasha. Not in this parasha, Zot HaBaracha. Zot HaBaracha, it's counting over here. It says the words, "Uliyosef amay mivorechet Hashem arutzo, umimeged shamayim mital umitohom robetzet tachat, umimeged tevot shamish, umimeged geresh yerachim." Geresh is gerushin, to get divorced. Yerachim, yerech. So therefore, when you write the get, you always write geresh, yerachim. The gerushin has to be counted by the yerech, by the moon. So what does it say by Eshet Yifat Toar? That she has to cry by her parents for 30 days. What does the pasuk say? It says over here, Ubaheta et aviha etima. What does the Torah say? Yerach yamim. That she cries by her parents for yerach yamim. It means 30 days. But the Torah used the word yerech. Therefore, it says the rabbi, the reason what tipped off Rashi to tell me that after he gets married to this woman, he's going to come to hate her and divorce her, because the parasha uses the words yerech, that she's going to cry by her parents, yerech yamim, and we know by a gidin, when you write the words divorce, you also count it by using yerech, that's what tipped off Rashi to tell me he's going to end up hating her, because the language used is the same language used by the get. Fascinating, no? You guys are not falling off your chairs. But when I saw it, I fell off my chair. Anyway, so it says that she, just like Natan just said, that what is the connection between Eshet Yifat Toar and Ben Sora Emoreh? Says Rashi, Aval im nas'a. Here we go. Musofo leholim mimena Ben Sora Emoreh. At the end of the day, if this man Bemed takes a non-Jewish woman from the war, he's going to have a child that's going to be a Ben Sora Emoreh. Lekach nismechu parashiot halalu. That's why these two parashiot are considered together. That's Peshat. And my question is why? Why? Rabotai. We always take that. I always take that for granted. That okay, you tell me I'm accepting it as fact that if a man takes a non-Jewish woman at war, he's going to have a child that's Ben Sora Emoreh, which is considered a wayward child. But my question is why? Why would this man have a Ben Sora Emoreh? What's Peshat? Is the question clear? Do you have any answers for me? I saw something fascinating. And this goes back to the things that we talk about a lot, which is raising children. As we know, gentlemen, if you don't have kids yet, you'll keep this in mind when you do have children, and those of us who have kids, again, it's a tremendous lesson, that when it comes to raising your kids, there are two ways to do it. One way does nothing, and the other way does everything. The way that does nothing is by telling your kids what to do. Nothing. You got that? When you tell your kids what to do, it doesn't usually work. Sometimes it breeds a little bit of success, but most of the time, it does not. It doesn't do anything. So how do you get your kids to do what you want? By practicing. Practicing. If you do it, and you're showing them by example, if you're living by example, they're going to follow you just because they saw it growing up. As the saying in American goes, you practice what you preach. And I have news for you. If you practice what you preach, you're not going to have to preach at all. You know what I just said? If you practice what you preach, you're not going to have to preach. Because the moment your children see seeing you doing what you're supposed to be doing, automatically they're going to follow suit. In fact, that's what the Kotzker Rebbe says in Parashah. Look back at the source sheet for a second. It says when the parents are complaining about the child, what do they say? They say, Ki yeh li'ish ben soreh moreh, enenu shomea b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo. He doesn't listen to the voice of his mother or his father. Says the Rabbi Mikutsk. The reason why your child went off the derech is because there was no kol aviv, no kol imo. Because he didn't have in his home a father that used to read Tehillim out loud. He didn't have a home where the father used to read Birkat Hamazon out loud. He didn't have a home where he saw his father going to shul in the morning. So therefore, the reason why he was a Ben Soreh Moreh is because there was no Kol Aviv and there was no Kol Imo. He didn't get used to the fact that his mother used to read Tehillim at night because she didn't read it at all. So therefore, the reason why he went off the path was because there was no Kol Aviv, there was no Kol Imo. But if he had Kol Aviv, Kol Imo, then it would have worked. A few weeks ago, someone calls me, and I'm close to them, so they can do this. And she tells me, the wife tells me, goes, Rabbi, my husband's not getting out of bed. Come get him to go to shul. Okay. So again, like I told you, like I know the couple, so it's okay. I get to the house, I throw the guy out of the house, I tell him, come with me to shul. He gets in my car. And as I'm leaving, his 9-year-old gets downstairs, and he looks at his mother, and he says, Mommy, is today Shabbos? What does that mean? What does that mean? Exactly. B'diuk. He only witnessed his father going to shul on Shabbat. So therefore, when he saw his father going to shul, he thought automatically, today must be Shabbat. Rabotai, Bar Minan. Bar Minan, when we have to go to shul during the weekday and our children assume that it's Shabbat because they only witnessed their father going to shul on Shabbat Kodesh. That's exactly what I mean. That children, they usually follow what they see. So therefore, if you wanted your child to do something, you might as well do it yourself. And by doing it yourself, you set the example, and most of the time, they're going to follow you right as you do it. Now, says the rabbis, that this is only one facet of teaching. One facet of Torah mitzvot is that you perform it and you hope your children will do the same. But there's also another facet of chinuch. And that facet is a much more, not deeper, but another way to understand, is that the Torah tells us in Parashat Kedushim, Torah says, Kedushim tihiyu. What does it mean, Kedushim tihiyu? What does that mean? You shall be holy. How does a person be holy? How does a person be holy? What does that mean, Kedushim tihiyu? How do you be holy? What in the mikveh? Fear your parents. How does a person fear? How does a person become holy? Kedushim tihiyu. So the rabbis tell us on that spot, what does it mean Kedushim tihiyu? It says, Kadesh et atzmecha b'ma shemutar lecha. What does that mean? That means sanctify yourself by what's considered permissible to you. What does that mean? That means that even though the Torah says that something is permissible, it's mutar. It's mutar for me to do a certain item. But even though it's mutar, even though it's permissible, stay away from it anyway. Let me give you an example. It's mutar to eat, correct? I'm allowed to eat food. Does that mean that I'm allowed to eat the entire day? Just because it's mutar to eat, does that mean that I'm allowed to go every single day and spend a lot of money on the most fanciest foods? If I want to go every single day to Doma and eat, am I allowed to do that? I mean, the Torah doesn't say anything wrong with it, but the guy that eats every single night in Doma and pays $200 for the tomahawk steak, that's what he has for dinner every single night. Could you call this man holy? Would you call him holy, Natan? I wouldn't call him holy. Why? Because even though the Torah says it's okay, at the same time, it's strange to overindulge in something the Torah says it's okay. That's called naval b'reshut Torah. You know what that means, naval b'reshut Torah? Look at the title of today's class. What does that mean? It's called being a illegal lowlife. That means that even though the Torah says it's okay, but you're acting in a very low-life type of fashion. That even though the Torah says mutar, it's okay to do these things, but when you overindulge in something the Torah says it's too much, that's already considered naval b'reshut Torah. I'll give you another example. Let's say your person's allowed to go shopping, you're allowed to go shopping, yeah? What happens if a guy makes it his job to go shopping every single day, all day? Do we call that guy holy? We don't call that guy holy. Again, even though it's mutar, it's permissible. The Torah says there's nothing wrong with doing ABC. But when you overindulge in things the Torah says it's okay, what happens is that you become an unholy person. Now listen to what happens as a result. Because the truth is that the way the Yetzer Hara gets you is that in the beginning, the Yetzer Hara will tell you that something is permissible. Therefore, he's going to get you to go to the extreme on the permissible, and then slowly but surely, it's going to become forbidden. He's going to go to the forbidden subjects. So he says over here, that's exactly what happened with the Eishat Yifat Tochar. What happens? Rabbi, imagine, and with this I'm going to end. Imagine for 1 second, this guy, this soldier, he goes to war. And as he's in war, he sees a beautiful woman. He takes her home with him. And his son sees this random woman living in the house. And he says, Abba, who is this? And he says, it's my new wife. And he says, is she Jewish? He goes, no, she's not Jewish. What's her name? Her name is, I don't know. Her name is Shaniqua. Her name is Shaniqua. He says, oh, Shaniqua. So he says, but isn't it asur? He goes, no, the Torah says it's mutar. Torah says it's permissible. So what's going to happen? The son, again, even though it might be permissible, but he's going to interpret this permissibility to take it to the opposite, to the extreme of the permissibility. That means that even though the Torah says taking an Eshet Yifat Tohar is okay, the son is going to come along, he's going to say, if this is mutar, let me do the extreme mutar. That means that later on in life, he's going to come to eat expensive meat and drink fancy wine, and if he can't get it, he's going to come to murder over it. Because again, I told you the rule. The rule is that even though something becomes permissible, the way the Yetzirah gets you to trip on it is he's going to get you to do the permissible in extreme. Let me give you the final example with this. I'm going to end. The final example is as follows. When I left yeshiva, the rabbis used to tell me as follows. They told me that, listen, boys, we know you're going to go home. Growing up in Israel, we know you're going to go home now. And what do yeshiva boys like to do on their break when they go home? They like to find healthy outlets. So what's considered a healthy outlet? Anybody know? Healthy outlets? Watching sports. That's what the rabbis consider a healthy outlet. So therefore, watching sports in the Torah, it's considered permissible. But what do some guys do? They take it to the opposite. Not the opposite, but they take it to the extreme all the way. What do? They watch sports, but not only do they watch sports an hour or two a day, which is what the rabbis meant, they watch sports for 3 hours a day. 4 or 5 hours. They're watching television sports the entire time. What happens eventually when you're watching sports for 3 or 4 hours a day? What's the next thing you move on to? Yeah, something that's considered forbidden. So that's where the Yetzirah works. In the beginning, he's going to tell you to watch sports. Why? Because that's mutar. Torah says it's mutar to watch sports. But eventually, you're going to take the mutar to the extreme. You're going to do it too much. And by doing it too much, you're going to move on to the forbidden level. That's the way the Yetzirah works. And therefore, it says the rabbi, this is exactly what that's the connection between Yifat Tohar and Ben Soreh Moreh. The father's going to come home one day. He's going to have a goya in his arms. The son is going to ask, what's going on over here? The father's going to tell him, it's okay, it's permissible. But the son is going to understand from here. What's the wording he uses over here? He's going to say over here, the son is going to interpret that as long as the Torah says it's okay, let's go to the extreme of mutar. He'll start off by kosher food and kosher wine until it's not kosher anymore, until he becomes a Ben Soreh Moreh. And therefore, not only is the father an Abba B'Shut Torah, but the son also becomes an Abba B'Shut Torah. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because the generation we live in today, everything became mutar, and they take mutar to the extreme. You see that sometimes the goyim, they have certain foods that people like to eat. When the Jews see, they become jealous. So therefore, the Jews, they have to match the food of the goyim on the same exact level. Whatever you want to find kosher today, you can find kosher. What's kosher? Because they're taking what's considered mutar. Everything is kosher. Everything is mutar. Everything has a kashrut on it. But bottom line is that when you take it too far, when you take it too much, these things could eventually lead to isur. So therefore, we have 4 answers to the question. That's it. With this, I finish. The reason why Eshet Yifat Tohar is considered permissible is because that Rashi says they know the psychology of human beings. That when a person is put back into a corner, if you don't let him do it beheter, he's going to come along and do it be'isur. And therefore the Torah is matir Eshet Yifat Tohar. First answer. Second answer, Rabbi Yonatan Abishitz, he says no, the exact opposite. The reason why we tell him it's okay is because we know that once we tell him it's okay, he's not going to want to do it anymore. Mashenkin, if it's asur, man genvim taku, he's going to want it even more. Answer, Magadosh. Third answer is because they were holy souls trapped in these goyim bodies, and therefore by marrying them, they extract the neshama. And finally, what is the connection between Eshet Yifat Tohar and Ben Soreh Moreh? The answer is because when you act in an overly permissible manner, something that you took that was mutar, you took it to the extreme, your son will learn from you and take it to the next level, even doing things that's considered asur. Shabbat shalom.